So you've decided to take an interest in teaching, have you? So despite what 12 years of formal education, we still haven't put you off. You're still here and you want to teach. My name is Lance Hanson. I am the, I suppose, head of teaching school, but strategic lead for teaching learning across Stour Vale Academy Trust. I used to work at Red Hill School, so if any of you used to go to Red Hill School, you might just about now remember me. And I used to be the head of English and assistant head teacher over there as well. But I'm thoroughly looking forward to sort of meeting you all today and to give you a little bit of insight into teaching and to hopefully encourage you to come and back with us in 3 years' time, 4 years' time after your degree and train with us as well. Okay, Tom?
Hi everybody. Yeah, just really quickly want to say thank you to Paul and the college for inviting us. It's a real pleasure to kind of chat with some of you and present to some of you this afternoon. Just want to introduce myself very briefly. I'm Tom Holder. I work with Lance for the Stour Vale Central team, and my current role is I lead on teacher training and development. But I'm from a primary background. Okay, so I've worked in primary schools over the last 15 years around Dudley, one of which was Greenfield in Stourbridge that some of you may have been to when you went to primary school. And yeah, obviously I can answer some of your questions, those you are thinking more primary related, but Lance and I will come as a bit of a double act for this presentation. We'll kind of interject, and we generally work pretty well together, so we'll kind of chip in on each other's bit, so to speak. Okay, I'm just going to present my screen and pass over to Lance, and as he's already said, if you've got questions, and please save them just to the end, and we're happy to answer whatever questions you throw our way. Okay, Lance, you happy to start?
Yes, I am. Okay, right. So I was just on mute there. I was testing your lip reading skills. There's our banner. Put your thumbs up if you've seen that on a bus, on the back of a bus somewhere, or outside of your college. It is actually there, and that's who we are. And as it says there, we train, we teach, we inspire, just a bit of a reminder of exactly, you know, what we do. Tom, do you want a next page, please? Next slide, please, Tom. Okay, and that pretty much says it all as well, really. Those of any of you that know any of our schools, Red Hill, Ridgewood, Earls, know that we all have a passion for learning. You can see that's three images from our schools. The top one is actually one of our last year's trainees getting heavily involved in drinking their coffee and trying to do some work that I'd set them, and the bottom one as well. And the middle one is some lovely primary school students. Is that Northfield Road, Tom? In the middle there, is that Northfield Road? I think it is, isn't it? Next slide, please, Tom. Okay, who are we? This is just a little bit of information so you know who it is that's talking to you. So we're an academy trust. That means that we are a collection of schools who work together for the best interests of their children. And we like to think that we're doing a great job of improving the educational outcomes of children across those areas of the Black Country, Dudley, Sandwell. And we've got 3 secondary and 3 primary schools. Let us know if you've been to any of those, and we'd lovely to hear from you if you have. And we've got we'll talk a little bit about what school direct teacher training is, but we can also talk about we'll give you a bit of information about all of the different teacher training routes. Okay, next slide, please, Tom. Okay, right now I want you to just put something in the chat if you can. You don't have to, well, you can say my favourite teacher, Mr. whatever, or Mrs. or Miss. Who was your favourite teacher at school? Well, what I'd also like to know is why. Okay, why were they, what was it about them that was, you know, that made them your favourite teacher? I'm going to give you 1 minute, okay, 1 minute to type in and hit return when I say go, okay? So not yet, 1 minute typing. Who was your favourite teacher at school and why? $45 more seconds.
I'm just going to upload the slides into Teams instead, Lance. Okay. No.
If you do upload that, then I can click forward as well at the same time. If you don't lock it, so that'd be quite good. Okay, another few seconds. Who is your favourite teacher and why? 10, 9. Miss a bit. Okay. Hit enter. Who was your favourite teacher and why? Ah, brilliant. Here they come. Okay, we're going to have a look at this in a minute, and I want to think about what are the commonalities. Okay. Have a look through, guys, everybody, as you're seeing people's responses. Have a look through and see if there are any common themes coming through. I've got words like supportive, accommodating, encouraging, helped. Okay, a good laugh in revision sessions, supportive, always there, always helpful, kind, easy to talk to. Okay, enthusiasm, support. I'm sure we've got more than 10 or 12 people out there. Okay, be lovely to see more of your responses. Don't be shy. What you can see there, though, is the pattern emerging. Yeah, it's interesting that none of you are saying, because I love my secondary school teacher because they were so knowledgeable about their subject. They knew so much about science or maths. They made maths exciting. They made, you know, there's a lot of there about personality in those responses. It's kind of people that are able to put themselves out, to give you a little bit more of themselves, and that's really interesting that you remember that. You don't remember that they knew such a lot about mathematics and about simultaneous equations. It was the fact that there were people, and really, you know, if it comes down to it, teaching is a job that is all about relationships. It's about building powerful relationships with people. Okay, and your responses there are absolutely evidence that your teachers built those relationships with you. Yes, they were fabulously educated. They knew about their subject, but they were there for you. And if you think that you can be that person that your teacher was to you, if you can be there for those young people that want and need your support, your guidance, then this is the job for you, isn't it? Okay, I think I'm going to try and navigate forward. There you go. And because, of course, that is, for me, what it's all about. Okay, without teaching, there would be no other professions, because we as teachers enable and empower you guys to go on and do the brilliant things that you're going to do in your lives. Okay, so vital to think about teaching as not, yes, it's a job has academic integrity, but it's also a job for people that are able to connect with others. Okay, so I think that so Tom, can you? That's right. So I think, yeah,
Yeah, no problem. I think that's this. I can't remember exactly what the saying is.
You're right. You're right.
But it's something around people might not forget what you said, and they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that's the theme that comes back from those comments about your favourite teachers. And I can remember you know, Mrs. Bullock telling me off in year 2, okay, even now, and how that made me feel, and how Mr. Powell really praised me up in assembly when I was 10, you know, I can remember that now. And that's really, you know, the power, as Lance said, the power of those relationships and the power that you have over the lives of young people. I'm just going to talk about for you guys as year 12s, and I know some of you might be some year 13s as well, thinking about some of the potential routes into teaching. Okay, so you can do an undergraduate degree. They tend to be 3 years. So the very first bullet point I've got there is a B.Ed, or you can do a BA or a Bachelor of Science with QTS. Okay, QTS stands for Qualified Teacher Status, and it's what you need to be able to teach as a qualified teacher in England and Wales. Okay, a B.Ed tends to be an undergraduate route for primary teachers. And Lance will know more about this than me, but there are secondary undergraduate routes that end up with QTS as well. Okay, usually it's not a route that secondary teachers follow, but there are some courses out there, and they tend to be 3-year courses. Okay, more common for secondary teachers, and I'd say about 50-50 with primary teachers, is the PGCE route. And that stands for a postgraduate certificate in education, and they tend to be 1-year postgraduate courses for people who've obtained their undergraduate degree, their bachelor's degree, and there tends to there's kind of two pathways, if you like. Okay, so you have a core PGCE, which tends to be the best way of summarising that is a university-based training route into teaching, with some time spent in school. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit later about how those might be structured. The third one on that list is what we call School Direct. School Direct are the courses that we run at Stour Vale. And they are a kind of a variation of a PGCE, if you like. Both a core PGCE and a School Direct will give you a PGCE qualification and QTS as well. Okay, the core difference with School Direct, and we'll talk about that briefly a little bit later, is that School Direct is a school-based training route with some time spent in university. So the difference between a PGCE core and School Direct is that the ratio of time you spend in school or university. And the last route into teaching on there is an apprenticeship route. And these tend to be a little bit rarer, and they tend to be for people that are already working within a school, and a school will employ them as an unqualified teacher, and they will train within that workplace. And I think it's something like well over 90% of people on apprenticeship routes will end up being employed as a qualified teacher within that school. Okay, but a little bit rarer, but that is another route into teaching. And for where you are at the moment, and if you're thinking about pursuing a career in teaching, so you might be, yes, this is what I've always wanted to do, or it might be just something that you're weighing up amongst a number of options. Okay, I would say that the first thing is to think about when you go to university is to think about the degree that's right for you. Okay, so it might be, if you've decided that teaching is the career that you want to pursue, that a B.Ed might be a good route, a B.Ed with QTS, but also thinking about you know what your A levels are in, what your passion is in terms of your subject, and also I'd say a really important thing that some of you may have gained from secondary school or part of your course is some work experience. Really important that you get into primary schools and secondary schools, weighing up. We speak to many people who think, I really want to go into secondary, but when they get a taste of primary, they decide that's really where their passion lies, and vice versa. So building up a bit of work experience in schools, If you haven't, when in normal times, I use that term in normal times. I'm sure if you got in touch with primary schools that you used to attend, they would have you in for build up a bit of work experience, some voluntary work. And the last thing I've put on here as well, we get a few people that do manage to gain employment in schools. They might work as a teaching assistant for a year or a couple of years after a degree to gain that kind of classroom experience that's right for them. It's what I did. I worked as a teaching assistant for a year before I did a PGCE, and that was just what was right for me. I could gain that kind of knowledge of what it was like in a school and go into my training with my eyes open of what life in a school was like. So I think really it's about weighing up getting that experience of primary and secondary and weighing up which is right for you, and just gaining that little bit of experience in schools. And also thinking about your choice of degree. For primary teachers, generally speaking, it doesn't matter what your undergraduate degree is in. Okay, it's an entry requirement that you have a degree, or at least generally at least a 2.2 or above. But for primary, it doesn't matter too much what the discipline is in. Excuse me. For secondary, a little bit different, because obviously you need to be qualified at a level above what you're going to teach. So if you, for instance, you might have done a business degree, and we have a lot of business graduates that then go to a big element of their degree contains maths. They go into a maths course, and they want to be mathematics teachers, but they do need to demonstrate that there's an amount of mathematics within their degree, and also they would need to teach GCSE. They would need to have an A level in mathematics. Okay, so it's about thinking about a degree that's right for you and where your passion lies in terms of subject, but also thinking about elements of a subject that you might want to teach later on. We get a lot of people that have done science degrees or similar. We had one recently that wanted to teach chemistry, but had no chemistry within her actual undergraduate degree. Okay, which kind of meant she couldn't follow that pathway. So it's thinking about what your degree is going to allow you to demonstrate when you apply in terms of your experience and your knowledge. Lance, is there anything you want to add on that one? You muted, Lance, sorry.
Sorry. No, I'm going to come to some of the fine details of that in a bit, aren't I? So okay. It's good. Okay, so what is School Direct? Well, as we've seen, there are several routes into teaching. School Direct is just one of them. It's actually becoming more and more popular as it's over the last few years, because it is exactly what Tom said. It's time spent in school, more time spent in school than you do in university. But like the PGC course, exactly the same qualification. You get your qualified teacher status and you get a PGCE, which is the postgraduate certificate in education. Okay, and that means that you are also equipped with 60 master's credits to take forward if you want to go on and do a master's degree in education studies. The PGDPED gives you 120 credits, so you've got that's more of a university-based course though. It's a very immersive training experience. You're in school all of the time, pretty much. About 40 days when you're not, but the majority of the time you spent in school and you're learning on the day, every day, and on the job. So you're learning from the professionals, from the experts. I'm sure that you've all been in schools where there's been a trainee teacher and the kind of support that you've seen them give, and also the way that you might have seen them develop as teachers is all down to the support that we get, that we provide in our teacher training course. Tom, next slide. So how does it work? Well, in order to come with us through School Direct, or go to any training school, teaching school through School Direct, schools require higher education accreditation, okay? And we at Stour Vale work with the University of Worcester and the University of Wolverhampton. So what happens is that, let's just say you want to train to teach English with Stour Vale Academy Trust, or whichever trust, then you apply to us and to the university at the same time through UCAS, which I'm sure you're all becoming familiar with as the weeks progress. And so we have we develop really strong, close relationships between the school and the university, and you have a really tight network of support. So you'll have a university mentor who will look after you. You'll have a school-based mentor who will look after you, and of course, if you're working with a teaching school like you would be with myself and Tom, then you've also got the support of the mentors at the teaching school as well. Tom, next slide. So what do you need to get in? You need a degree. Okay, it's the driving license that allows you to drive, if you like. It's legislation, and that's the case that you do need a degree to teach. So like I said to you at the very beginning of my presentation, I want to see you in 4 years' time coming to train to teach, either with us or whoever. But you need a 2-2 at least. Some universities and some teaching schools would ask for a 2-1. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. You do need your GCSEs at 4 and above, English and maths, and also science for primary, so don't forget that. We used to have something called the skills test, which was an English and literacy and numeracy test, which I thought was a little bit cruel when you consider you've probably already got GCSEs in English and maths. They no longer apply anyway, so you can breathe a sigh of relief there. Now, Tom's talked about school experience. It is desirable. Now, they say it's not essential, but if you want to teach, I think you've got to have a good idea of exactly which type of teaching you want to be. Do you want to work in secondary? Do you want to work in primary? So try and get some experience wherever possible. Really important to do that. And if you can get 2 or 3 days in a school, in a couple of different schools, just so you can get a feel of what different schools are like, it's just going to help you so much in your training year. Next slide, please, Tom. Okay, so these are just some of the, it speaks for itself, guys, doesn't it, really? I've taught you, your responses in the chat earlier on kind of, if you like, link to some of these bullet points that we've got here. You absolutely need to have empathy, those people and personal skills that you need to get on with other people and young people, and to be able to help them to overcome the challenges that they have in their lives, and to make them the kind of successful students that you are now. Okay, you talked about how your teachers helped you. So this idea of creating these positive conditions for learning. Like any job, you've got to work well with others, but just as maybe in the medical profession, this is about building relationships. Like any profession, you've got to be open to change. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to handle stress and be calm. Again, you will have your experiences in your own schools of how teachers have been able to remain very calm, and sometimes not, let's be honest, in stressful situations. You absolutely have to be a wonderful communicator. You have to be able to communicate that knowledge. You've got all of this knowledge. You need to bring it down to the students in your class, and also to be able to sort of develop their skills as well. Okay, and of course nowadays, especially now, you need to be able to use a computer and to be able to have those skills of dealing with online learning. This is here. It's going to stay. It really is. So the more that you can get experience with using computers to present things, the better. Next slide, please, Tom. I think this might be you. No, that's still me, I think, isn't it? During your training year, it kind of pans out like this, really. You will have a main training school. It works a bit like a sandwich, the year does. You have the bread in your sandwich is your main training school, and you're with them normally autumn and summer term. And the second placement school is kind of the filling in the sandwich, and that's the spring term. It's kind of a slow release timetable. You will build up to teaching more and more lessons as the year goes on. So you'll begin with just watching and observing, and then you'll take on a few classes of your own. You know, that really, really tense moment when you have to stand in front of a class for the first time and you're in control. It's both an exhilarating and also a kind of a very, very, very nerve-wracking experience as well.
I think a lot of people think they're expected to stand in front of a class and teach on day one, aren't they, Lance? So people have that misconception.
Yeah,
no one's expecting that of you at all.
No, that's day two, Tom, isn't it? No, you're slowly released into the environment, so that you watch a lot of good teaching. You'll do some team teaching, and by about October half term, you'll be ready to take your first classes. It's fabulous. You get university subject sessions where you're taught, so you know, how to deliver your subject at secondary or primary level. You work with me and Tom on school-based professional studies, so what will happen is, whichever university you go to, really, there will be something called professional studies, and that's where you learn about things like differentiation, you know, the ability to kind of relate your subject to different levels of ability, to adapt to different levels of ability in your class. Or you might learn about behaviour management. Believe me, I bet what the first question you will ask when you start to trying to teach is, how do I get the children to listen? And those are the kind of things that we give you the knowledge and the skills to do. You also do a little bit of enhancement. So if you're doing secondary, you might go into a post-16 college for a week, or primary, or if you're doing primary, you'll do some secondary, and so on and so on. You need to see where the children go from when they leave you. What do they go on to do? And as I said, you've got master's level accreditation to take those 60 credits through to your master's in education if you want to. Tom, I think that's you now, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Just a little bit of information on some of these slides. We've got links to websites where you can find out more information. I'm sure what we will do, and it is fine as long as it's okay with Paul, we'll share these slides with Paul, and we'll think about how to share them with you guys. So don't worry if you miss some of these links and things right now. We'll share them so you can explore some of these things afterwards. This is for the current academic year. There are training bursaries available. So for certain shorted subjects at secondary, the DFE, and that's the Department for Education, they offer people bursaries to attract them into the profession. And you can see the kind of shortage subjects, if you like, and the bursaries that they attract for your training year. There are also scholarships available that sometimes will offer a little bit more. They tend to be awarded for sort of exceptional academic excellence. Okay, there's a little bit more information on some of that on the Get Into Teaching website, the link that we've put on the slides there. I can't foresee what training bursaries would be like in 3-4 years' time, but needless to say, there will most likely be training bursaries for certain subjects. Tend to be science, maths, and the subjects that you can see there, just to attract more and more graduates into the profession. And these are the teacher standards. I'm not going to read these out. You can kind of digest them as I'm talking. These are the professional standards which kind of all teachers are kind of bound together, if you like, primary and secondary across England. And as a trainee, these are the teacher standards that you are judged against to be awarded QTS at the end of your training. But also they're the same standards that teachers who are 3 years in, 10 years in, 30 years in are judged against as well as part of their annual appraisal. Okay, And the teacher standards are split into two parts. Part one being teaching, and you can see the 8 standards there. These are just the headlines. If you're interested and want to find out more, there's a link there that kind of unpicks them a little bit more for you. And part 2 is about your personal and professional conduct, okay, being a role model to children and young people, and how you conduct yourself both in the classroom and actually outside of school as well. We do talk to people about how they behave online within social media, and there's a responsibility for teachers to uphold those high standards of personal and professional conduct as well, of which we're judged against. And hopefully you can see that better than I can see it on my screen. And again, I'm not going to talk through that too much, but some salary information for you for the current academic year, of the kind of earnings that you can make as a teacher. There's different scales. Okay, there is a main scale, which you can see represented there by M1 to M6. And there is an upper pay range, and I'll briefly talk about those as well for classroom teachers. So once you've done your training year and you qualify with QTS, and you start something called your NQT year, which is a period which is called your induction period, okay, where again you're kind of assessed against the teacher standards. And of course, we'll talk about the teacher standards. You're assessed relative to the position in your career, okay, whether you're a trainee, and then they're built upon in your NQT year, NQT being newly qualified teacher, okay, and you would start on what we call M1, and then you tend to have an annual appraisal against those teacher standards that I went through briefly, and you'd move up to the next point on the pay scale. When you're a few years in, you've got the opportunity to pass threshold, which is to go on to the upper pay scale, and classroom teachers tend to move through those every 2 years up until what you can see there is U3, okay, which is the very top of the upper pay scale. But there are opportunities for extra earnings and advancement as well. Teachers can earn something called a TLR, and you can be awarded a TLR generally in primary for moving into like a middle management position. You might lead a phase, okay, so you might be in charge of early years, which would be nursery, and reception. You might be in charge of Key Stage 1, Year 1 and 2. You might be in charge of lower Key Stage 2 or upper Key Stage 2 and lead a couple of year groups. Okay, at secondary, and I'm sure Lance will chip in as well if there's anything that I miss, you can earn TLRs for being a head of year. You can earn them for being a curriculum lead, head of faculty. Okay, so there's lots of rooms for advancement, like both secondary and primary. And also some people like to specialise and go down a special educational needs route. You might work in a special school, or you might be in a mainstream school, and you might specialise as a SENCO, which is a special educational needs coordinator. And there are extra payments for roles like that as well. Okay, and then for people who go on to advance into leadership roles, there's a leadership pay scale as well. I'll just let you digest those. I'm not going to read those out, and again we'll share these slides through Paul as well afterwards. A couple of quotes from our trainees this year about our courses, and a general theme that our trainees like is the amount of kind of bespoke support. As Lance says, the heart of good teaching is all through relationships, and we pride ourselves on having very good relationships with our trainees and supporting through every step. Okay, whether it's to do with once they've applied and been accepted, trying to get them a little bit of extra work experience in their schools, talking them through their very first steps in the classroom, right up until when they're teaching a fuller timetable towards the end of the course. and we're there to help them through the whole process and beyond. Okay, so there's a lot of our trainees that end up gaining employment through our courses and in our schools, and we do like to help people. We've recently run mock interviews. Okay, so a lot of our trainees have gone through a kind of mock interview process to help them help prepare them for the real thing. And a lot of our current trainees are viewing schools and applying for NQT positions, and we support them with that as well, with helping them put together their letters of application and things like that. Another port of call for you, if you've not been to it and you're interested in pursuing a career in teaching, is the Get Into Teaching website. Lots and lots of information on there for you about the different routes, as well as pursuing maybe gaining a little bit of extra experience and thinking about events that different training providers will put on. At Stour Vale, we put on regular train to teach events that people can sign up to on our website, and they can talk about their individual circumstances as well. And we can always answer their questions. And we always say, if we don't know the answer to the questions, we will always go away and find out for them as well. Okay. Little bit of contact information for you there, our email address, our website, our Train to Teach website, and our kind of Twitter feed as well for you that you can look back onto. Lance, I'm happy to pass over to you if you want to chat a little bit about the last couple of slides.
Yeah, I think you've got from us, haven't you, already, that teaching is a career for those that are passionate about teaching. You know, if you want to teach, you've got to be in love with the job. And I think that's the same for a lot of professions, isn't it? Really, I mean, people you listen to people who've got who have got jobs they really enjoy, whether you're an actor or a footballer. It's a kind of, you kind of think, God, I'm doing a job and I'm getting paid for something I love, and that's what teaching is. Yes, you do get paid. It's amazing, isn't it? But that's a really interesting quote, because it is sometimes challenging. Like every job, it is quite challenging, but come into it with your eyes wide open. You already know a lot about what it's like to be on the other side of the teacher's desk, if you like, and to take that step and to move onto the other side, it absolutely demands that sense of passion about your subject and about your relationships with children. Really, really vital. With this, the reason I put this in our slides is that a lot of people think that teaching is something they will do after they've had another career, or they might think, well, I'm not quite sure, I'll have a go and see whether I can be a rock star or something, and then I'll come back to being a teacher. Listen, I was in the building trade until I was about 25, 26, and I came into teaching. Becoming a teacher was the best decision I ever made. It opened up so many doors for me, helped me build so many relationships, helped me be a confident person as well, and just really quenched my thirst for knowledge. And I think that's, you guys are here because you want to know stuff. You're at King Ed's because you're getting a wonderful academic experience, and the natural progression is for you to want to do and develop that at university, and then why not join a profession where you're learning every single day? So make it your first choice. Okay. I
think it's really important to say that you'll be entering a career where you're developed throughout your career. Okay, and you continue to grow and you continue to look at ways of improving your practice as a teacher. I can guarantee, Lance can guarantee as well, it's a career where you will never be bored, you will never clock watch, no 2 days are ever the same. And I think the common theme that kind of unites the very best teachers and that I've worked with is that kind of that moral purpose for wanting to improve the lives of children and young people. And you really can make a difference in pupils' lives. You really can. You see it, okay? And when they come back to you and years later and they talk about, oh, I still remember this lesson, I still remember that last lesson, and some of the comments that you put in at the start of the meeting, that they remember, okay, and they remember take that well into their adult lives as well. Right, we had some questions that were submitted before we put the presentation together that we've just put up there that we will talk through. But while one of us is talking through those questions, if you've got any other questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to put them into the chat, and we'll kind of chat. We'll kind of talk through some of those as well.
Okay, I'll crack on with these questions then, Tom. There are a couple of questions coming in already, I think. One from Jess Noble. First question was really about lesson planning. You are taught how to plan lessons. We're not going to say it's not kind of, well, off you go on your own. There's so many different opportunities, not only just at university or in your professional studies, but also your school mentor will help you plan lessons as well. It's something you continue to develop as you go through the training year. And even now, I delivered a lesson this afternoon to some year 11s at one of our schools. I don't think it went that well, actually, and I'm going to do it better tomorrow. And that's what happens. You're constantly improving. Work experience we've talked about, I think, really. So you guys are 3 years off from doing your PGCE anyway, so there'll hopefully be time for you to get into school. Separate degrees to teach in a college. Well, we've got college lecturers in on the meeting with us now, but you can do a separate qualification to teach at further ed. But we have had trainees come through our system, our system, and have gone on to get jobs at colleges. I know of one trainee working at one of our trainees who's working at King Ed's now. So that's, you don't need necessarily a separate degree, but I think if you're going to teach, say, geography in a further education college, I think it's good to get a degree in geography. Okay, so it's really important to think about that. This was a really ambitious question. I want to be a professor. Excellent. And if you want to be a professor, then you're probably looking for a career in higher education. So that means you've got to do a lot of study. So you've got to do a first degree, you'll need to do a master's degree, and then a PhD, which takes 3 years full time and forever part time. Believe you me, I know it. I've just finished one. And then a professor is kind of, it's more of what can I call it? It's kind of it's a term bestowed upon you by a university for your kind of special services at times as well, and leading on a particular area in your university. So good luck with that, whoever asked that question. But there's probably about
the ambition there is admirable.
Absolutely. Right, some questions in the chat then.
I've messaged back Jessica. She said interested in a 3-year BEd primary teaching course. I would say for the majority, the best place to look at first of all is the Get Into Teaching website, and also you can see BEd courses advertised on UCAS as well. Okay, that would be where I'd start if I were you. Another one, Lance, does the prestigiousness of the university you attend impact the likelihood of getting a teaching job once you've graduated?
No.
No.
Get your degree. A degree should be a degree. So we've got teachers or trainees from all kinds of different universities. So no, get a good degree. Have a real idea of where you're going and do the course that you think is going to get you there. Question from Faye. Message from a student registration form. Where is the best place to start enrolling in teaching? Well, I'm assuming that what you mean there is applying to be a teacher. So again, it's what Tom said. The Get Into Teaching website. That's where you start. If it's about finding experience, then Tom's already mentioned, contact your local schools to get some school experience. Any more questions?
Any more questions, folks? We're happy to take a few. We're also happy as well if any of you on the form we put our contact details. If anybody wants to get in touch with us for kind of advice as well, we're happy to do that. But I would say for you guys where you are at the moment, that Get Into Teaching website, as well as looking at courses on UCAS, is probably a good place for you to look at.
Megan Wilkinson wants to become a university professor in education studies as well. I think, what do you mean by professor? Do you mean a lecturer, Megan? I think maybe someone that lectures in education studies at university. Well, I've got to be honest, I think if you want to lecture in education studies, I think you're probably better off going into teaching first. A lot of people that work in the education departments in universities have done some teaching. Okay, it's probably, because you need to have walked the walk if you're going to talk the talk. Well, that's a cliche, isn't it? But you know what I mean. Any more questions?
I'm just going to stop presenting these slides for now.
Just if you do want to work in a university on education studies or anything on that matter, a higher degree is important. So not just an undergraduate degree. I think you need to do a master's at least if you're going to get to do some work in universities. It's a very competitive field.
I was just going to add that if you email me the slides as well as your contact detail, I will happily make those available to students to access afterwards.
Will do.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, Emily,
what's the difference between a 3-year course with QTS and BEd for primary? Okay, so a BEd for primary will be a 3-year course that will end up with QTS. Okay, so it's just an undergraduate route into teaching and gaining that qualified teacher status. And a lot of the courses we've spoken about as well, there's particularly School Direct that we do, is a postgraduate 1-year course after you've obtained your undergraduate degree. But both will result in QTS.
You don't need a PGCE to teach, but you've got to have QTS. And the other thing that you might be referring to there, Emily, is I know that I think the University of Wolverhampton do a BA honours in English and in physics with QTS. So it's 3 years. So you get your BA degree in English or physics, and you get qualified teacher status as well. And you can go on and teach. You don't have to. You don't have to do a PGCE core or a Schools Direct for that matter. The difference is that a PGCE is a little bit like a really strong professional qualification. It gives you the master's credits, but it also enables you, if you want to teach abroad. So it's basically the qualification, the certificate for teachers, really.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you,
That's
Paul.
Great. Thank you ever so much. As I said, this has been recorded and still is. I will turn that off in a moment. But yes, thank you ever so much, Tom and Lance. That's greatly appreciated, and is a fantastic start to the King Ed's Virtual Careers Week.
Pleasure.
Thank you for that. Very much appreciated. And yes, if you email me the presentation and your contact details, we will make those available to students after this.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for coming in as well. Thank you ever so much. Take care, both of you.